Good morning, everyone. This is Ron. Hadn't been outside, but it looks like it's shaping up to be a pretty day. At least it's sunny out. So hope we enjoy this weekend. But I hope your week went well. And here we are. So we're open today. Questions, comments, anything to grab your attention.
I have something that was brought up to me this week. However, I'll wait and see if there are any other questions or comments about anything else.
Okay.
I have a
I
question.
got one question.
I'm sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
yield.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I always say you don't know what life will bring you. And
Hmm.
we make plans to do things, and I'm wondering, should we make plans to do things? Because it's like when you make plans, there are things that come into your life and it just like changes things. It changes the game or your plan, so to speak. That's my question for today for the family. Should we continue to plan and make preparations for things? And yeah, that's my question for today. My first question for today.
I'm glad you changed that to first instead of the question. I think we should make plans. It's pretty much difficult to avoid making plans. However, we should always be prepared to deal with what's in front of us, whether we planned it or not. Because the plans that we make are usually predicated on what we want or what we have told someone we're going to do. I think the biggest issue with making plans is based upon what we've told somebody we're going to do. Because people are quick to say you lied to them or you disappointed them. Simply because I plan to meet with you today or we plan to go to dinner today, it does not mean that it's going to happen. Priorities shift all the time. And when we relinquish our free will to the universe and we begin to walk that journey, then our plans, our journey, our next step, our thoughts are subject to what is important to humanity as opposed to what's important to us individually. And the universe is always the primary guidance in that regard. Does that help you, Evelyn?
Yes, it does.
Just make plans. If you expect everything, you get nothing. If you expect nothing, you get everything. Meaning that be willing to shift with the desires of the universe. Energy has the propensity to guide you in a different direction than your mind carries you sometimes.
So it's okay. Okay, so you're saying it's okay to make plans, but there are times when things not necessarily mean that your plans will not come to fruition. It's just that there's some things that have to take place or may have to take place in order for you to get to those plans, or
Yes.
it can go. Okay.
Yes. And sometimes they don't come to fruition because they're not good for you. You just don't know it. So you can't relinquish to universe or follow the energy of the Creator, and at the same time be resistant to it because it's not carrying you where you want to go, or doing for you what you think it should be doing. It's a lot easier to live life with the understanding that you're traveling a journey that's being guided by powers greater than you. And just because your little feelings are hurt because you didn't get to do something, or somebody else's feelings are hurt because you were not able to fulfill something, does not change, that should not rather have an adverse impact on you or on anyone else. Because after all, our primary journey is for the betterment of humanity, is it not?
Yes. So should I not have expectations?
When I say expectation, I explain that by saying, if you expect your plans to come to fruition all the time, then you're in trouble. If you expect, if you expect whatever the universe offers, then you're fine. Because if it does not live up to what you want, you're still good. How many times have you planned to do something, and then it did not work out the way you thought it should, and later on down the line you thought back at it and said you were glad it didn't because it would have been disastrous or painful?
Numerous times.
Say again?
I said numerous times.
So, again, this whole idea of being guided by the universe explored a bit more than we have. And this concept of how do we get to the, as we travel this journey, also probably needs to be explored a bit more. Why? Because I think that we have our desires differ. Our spiritual desires differ than our natural desires, not necessarily material, but our natural desires. And that happens because of the way we see ourselves. It's almost like we see ourselves, instead of seeing ourselves as one unit, we see ourselves as two separate entities. We plan things that we're going to do in this natural earth, and at the same time, we say that our footsteps are guided by Yahweh, because the steps of a righteous man are guided by Yahweh, are guided by the Lord. That if that is the case, then that's seeing us as separate entities. However, if we understand that our primary guidance comes from the one who created us, then the things that we plan individually may never come to fruition, but we ought to be good with that. For example, since 2019, we've not been able to have the gathering that we have at the house with hundreds of people. We've not been able to do that. And each year we have looked forward to doing it, but it did not work out that way. Was it disappointing? Yes, but not disappointing to the extent that we felt like everything was doomed. That's not it at all. The disappointment came because we didn't see each other, but the gratitude came because we did not have a super spreader event too. So we have to look at it more than in one way, yet the primary way is spiritual. If I were to ask you to call me each morning and give me my schedule, and then I made a schedule of my own at some parts of that day, and then when you call me with my schedule, I've already planned something, but you're the creator. So whose schedule is preeminent in this case? The one from the creator, because it benefits humanity, and you cannot benefit humanity without being benefited yourself. That makes sense?
It does. And also, does the scripture that says it will give you the desires of your heart, how does that align with what we're talking about?
If you keep my Sabbath, there are prerequisites to that. in that, I think it's the 61st chapter of Isaiah. If you keep my Sabbath, if you well, I think it did take care of the poor. There are 3 or 4 prerequisites that, but all of them pertain to the Creator and mankind. Keeping Sabbath is something that we have not talked about, but those are the prerequisites for getting the desires of your heart. It's not that you just go desire something and you're going to get it. There's a foundation that has to be laid first, and that foundation deals with the spiritual as well as interaction with humanity itself. That give you the desires of your heart is based on claiming somebody's house or naming and claiming on a car lot or something crazy like that. Does that make sense?
It does. I guess we've been conditioned to think a certain way or to get things in a different way. We want it and we want it now. We have that microwave attitude. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
and I appreciate the answers.
Thank you. But we do have a microwave attitude. We want it now without regard to what kind of hardships it may bring down the road. But if we wait and be patient, what we find out is all of those, all of our doubts, all of the anger or the discomfort that we experience during those periods when we don't get what we want when we want it are for our benefit. As a matter of fact, when we think like that, we are thinking no differently than a child who's extremely immature, who wants everything at that moment. We are being immature. And to think like that even now, especially as long as we've been on this journey and not catching ourselves or allowing someone to help us see that we are headed in the wrong direction, if we should be mature enough spiritually to either catch ourselves or be open to someone helping us see that this is not the route we should be taking. I mean, we've been on this journey for quite a while. Now, I do believe that these discussions may seem, unimportant or menial to us as we talk about this. However, when we think about the whole concept of putting it in the macro, what do we begin to see? We begin to see a change in other people as well, in terms of the desires that we want when we want them. The thing to look at in that is really when we think about how things are changing in this world today, and how we are impacting humanity simply by our discussions. For too long, we have sought to impact humanity by preaching at humanity or by praying as we've been taught to pray, as opposed to the way that Jesus told us we should be doing it. And I'm not talking about saying our Father in heaven, etc. I'm talking about meditative. I'm talking about directed focus. I'm talking about a deep committed desire for our lives to be lived for the benefit of those around us under the leadership of the one who created us. That's a huge difference than how our guidance has been in the past, meaning different than we were reared in terms of how the church guided us. That's a huge difference. And since we've been on this journey, we have been able to not only see but to experience in our lives how things have changed in terms of the society itself. We see a huge shift in how things in this country are taking place, especially since 2008. The beginning of that shift came when Obama won the presidency. And the reason I say that is because the powers that be did not really mind him becoming president because of the state of the economy during that time. And now that the state of the economy, when he shifted the state of the economy, the idea was we're going to let this African man be in this position, but we're going to destroy him. He's not going to be successful in anything he does. Those are the paraphrase words of Mitch McConnell and people like him. And the people who are like him are not all Republicans either. They are Democrats as well. And when the ancestors saw that, saw fit rather to bring him through that in a two-term presidency and raise the economy from the ashes to a place where it was viable again, that in itself spoke volumes. And then to have Trump to come in, et cetera, and on down the line, we've seen those major changes. And honestly, the reason when the economy rose, we think that I was one who said, so nothing was really done for us to change things as a people. What it actually did, those who sought to destroy this African was trying to show that Africans are incapable of being in position of responsibility and power. And the God that they worship, they were losing. And when the economy roared back, their God was resurrected. So what I'm saying in essence is that we have had tremendous impact, and we've been able to see it. Those with eyes, let them see. Those with ears, let them hear. And you must be able to use your hearing and your seeing to read the signs of the times, and not only read them, but to understand the impact of them on humanity. And that impact is being able to observe the shifts. One of the major shifts that the Creator has bringing into fruition now is right before our eyes, and most of us are missing it. One of the major shifts that's taking place right now is something that I don't think we really like talking about, because we don't deem it as being spiritual. We see it as being political. And that ignorance has guided us to a place of servitude indefinitely. When we rise above that ignorance of not understanding what we see, it is at that point that we begin to have a positive impact on the world. What am I saying? First of all, what happened is the era of white supremacy by Trump unveiled a lot of things. It brought it to the surface. The racism that's beneath the surface has now risen to the top. I was sent a video of Tony Evans, and I looked at that video, listened at that video, and listening at Tony Evans, I was shocked because he talked about the racism in the Southern Baptist Church and how it has adversely impacted. Of course, he was still speaking from quote-unquote Christian perspective as he had been taught Christianity, but for him to talk about the racism of the Southern Baptist Church and how it has perpetuated racism all of these years, with him having graduated from Southern Baptist Institute in Texas, and for him to, knowing how he had spoken in the past, I was shocked until I thought about it. This is part of the impact that we are having on religion itself, and shifting the sight of those who are deeply engaged in this. When that in itself was one of the things that helped me to see that the principles of not the principles. I'm sorry, the policies of white supremacists like DeSantis and McMaster's and others. That these policies are the greatest thing that could happen because we are reliving Reconstruction all over again. We're reliving Jim Crow all over again. The last time that happened, no one really did anything about it, even though we tried. And the trial was through marching in the streets, etc., and made every effort to do it through the political channels that in themselves were designed to keep us in bondage. That did not change anything. Now that we are traveling the spiritual journey in search of freedom for everyone, and I don't mean freedom in terms of those who espouse this concept of freedom. I'm talking about something totally different. What do we see? We see the policies of a DeSantis really setting into law, setting into concrete racism and the racist tactics that have been under the radar for many, many years. And that in itself is waking people up and causing people to see things differently than they have in the past. If he had done just one thing and waited 8 months to do the next thing, no one would have paid his attention. But now that he's doing it back to back, everyone focuses on it and people's hearts are shifted. In addition to that, when you look at the dismantling of Fox News is the primary perpetuator of the news arm for white supremacy. Fox has been the foundational voice for white supremacy ever since its inception. And now we are seeing it, the cracks in the structure of it. That is the Creator speaking to us. That's the universe telling us that you are being effective in what you are doing and bringing balance to humanity. You are being effective in your desire to bring to a halt white supremacy. And if we were to look at this through the eyes of the church, I would be told that I am bringing politics in, and I'm bringing history into a setting that should be a quote-unquote Christian/religious setting. Well, quite frankly, what Christianity and religion espouses to be is totally foreign to the Scriptures. The power that we exert in this realm is the power of the Scriptures. The Bible itself, the book, is powerful. Only if you know the power of it. And you can't know the power of it until you know yourself. And when you know yourself and have this deep desire for humanity, then the universe, our Creator, begins to open up an understanding for us. We begin to see the understandings of the wisdom of the book. Thus, it gives us opportunity to experience the reality of what the book is saying. And right now, what we are beginning to see is the demise of the power that has always controlled this world, not just this country, but this world. And the demise of that power structure is because there is a deep spiritual desire to bring humanity to a place of balance, a place of unicity with its Creator, to bring humanity to the place where it knows who it is, and it does not seek to hold on to its existence based upon how much money you have or don't have. The power in it is the power that's inherent in us, not external of us. We have been living based upon an external power and an external God. And I don't call that living. I call that existing. Because we have always been living, waiting for the other shoe to drop. and that in itself is not living. That's existing. I remember hearing Chris Rock make a statement. He said that he does not understand what it means, what white people are talking about when they're talking about taking their country back. The question that he raised was, from whom are they going to take it? Who took it away from them? How can that be possible? And one of the things that was brought up was that as Africans, we can talk about how we dislike white folk all we want. You can even talk about how much you hate them and how much you would like to see them destroyed. All that you can talk about, but you can't not make any of that happen. However, if a white person talks about, especially a white male, talks about how they hate black folk, how they loathe us, and how they want to destroy us, they can do anything they want to. They have the power to do that. So the question becomes, who took your country? What it is that they are fighting over control of their country. It's two white people fighting over control of the country. So when they talk about taking it back, who they're taking it back from? They're trying to not take it back as much as it is to hold on to the structures that were put in place to keep people of color in their place. And that battle is between the Democrats and Republicans. And what that means is the battle is whether we're going to be racist on the surface / Republicans, or whether we're going to be racist beneath the surface Democrats. That's what the battle is. What they don't understand is that there is a third party involved in this, and it's not a political party. It is a spiritual body that has made a decision to move beyond all of the adversity that can be thrown at it for the express purpose of bringing everyone to a place of balance without regard to race or financial means. That's where we are right now. And the way we are doing that is, well, let me ask if there are questions before I get to that, because that's where I'm headed, is to respond to something that was raised to me this weekend. During the course of this week. So are there any questions or comments?
What you've been talking about is the separation that people have made, we have made. I say we, although we understand what we did, between the secular and religion, or the secular and what we call religion. It's not sacred, it was just religion. And because of this separation, we think that we are in charge of everything about the secular, like what our time should be, what our entertainment should be, what our jobs are, etc. What our government, how we relate socially to people. And on the other hand, we for the religious, we say, well, God is in charge of that. And so, like, heaven and whatever our perceptions of hell are, church, worship, praise, prayer, that kind of thing. We say that, well, that's the religious part of it. And then, so we set aside a place that we say we want to honor God, and we think it's the building. And although we say we want to honor God in this building, what our intent is that we want to keep God in God's place, which is in the building, in the physical building. But what happens is, until we understand that that physical building is not where the Creator is honored, we are deceiving ourselves. We don't have the final say. And until we understand that everything is sacred, everything is sacred, whether it's the secular, or whether it's the political, or whether it's the the religious stuff we have. Everything is sacred because we are sacred. So you're just affirming some of the things that I've been thinking about this week.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think what Barb just said kind of really ties into to Evelyn's question. And Evelyn's question to me is right on point. The question speaks of the battle within, and where we stand, and the desires of your heart, or even looking at your expectations. The principles that guide those thoughts are based on a false religion and a false view of who God is, and we have looked at with our eyes the rewards of white privilege, and you couple that with the scriptures, and you end up believing something that's not there, or seeing something that's not there. So we are just seeing that all is sacred, and the belief that I am Elohim, and that the free will is what giving up of the free will ties into me seeing that all is sacred, and me seeing that the desires of my heart are no longer earthy type of things. There are things that I'm responsible for that I have to accomplish, but I put them in a different perspective when I look at it through that idea that we're talking about what truth looks like. Everything falls into perspective. So yeah, I just my attempt to kind of tie the whole thing together, because it all makes sense. But the question, really, the original question kind of sets us to see where we are now, and even some of the things that we still battle against.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ron, I'm glad you said that, because I think I asked that question because I feel at times I'm not where I want to be, or sometimes should be. And I was watching this movie called on Showtime called Anywhere, Everywhere. I don't forgot the name of the movie. Everywhere, Everything Everywhere, or something like that on Showtime. Anyway. And go ahead, Pastor.
Everything Everywhere at the same time.
Yes, that movie. And apparently the lady in the movie, her name is Evelyn, she was having the same feelings that I'm having now. And her husband was telling her, he had came to her. It's a good movie, y'all. Y'all should watch it. But anyway, what the message I got in that movie is the creator was talking with her and telling her he know that she feel that she have not made a difference in this world. And I'm not saying I have not, but I think that's why I asked this question this morning, because there are times when I have made plans to do things and something comes, and I'm not even going to call it a hiccup. I think it's just a lesson. Something has come and it has changed things. And yeah, sometimes I feel like at times that I'm not where I want to be. I'll just say that, or do the things that I want to do because of these situations that have come, or the lessons, I will call them. I'm not going to call them a situation, they're lessons. So that's why I feel that I asked that question this morning.
However, you feel like so many of us do. Yet we need to remind ourselves that the question becomes, if I'm not where I want to be, then where do I want to be? But the main thing is being where you need to be. And following the journey of the spiritualism, of this desire to know who you are and your oneness with the Creator, is always where you should want to be. And that's not always something we see. Usually when we think about, not just you, but usually when we think about not being where we want to be, if we question ourselves and ask us what does all it mean to us, we find most of the time, it's not all the time, but definitely most of the time, that where we want to be is more related to the material world than the spiritual. Does that make sense?
It does, Pastor. And I'm going to tell you, I often say to myself, there's more to what I'm doing now. I know it's more to this life than what I'm doing now. And sometimes I can get stuck into that thinking mode. I have to wake up, get out of that. I know it's more to this world, but the time has not come yet. So I hear what you're saying, but yes.
May I make a suggestion to you?
Yes, sir. Please do.
Not just to you, Evelyn, but to all of us. Yes, there is more, but let's stop looking for it. The very thing that we search for, we were searching for an understanding of Elohim, of God. And what did we find in search of that? We didn't find anything. It found us. It showed itself to us. We were looking for something, and it was right in front of us all the time. Well, when we found God, when we found Elohim, what did we find? We found ourselves. So how would we know when we get to the more if the more does not apprehend us and show us what it is? So my suggestion, not just to you, ma'am, but to me as well, is for us to continue this journey with a desire to bring harmony to humanity, because if we get caught up on searching for the more and we fall into this trap or go down this rabbit hole of trying to determine what more looks like, it appears that we're getting less. Because if we were to look at the circumstances that we face today in terms of what's happening in the news and all around us, it seems like we have less. We have regressed to where we were during Jim Crow. So that regression is not true. What we are seeing are the foundations that we have lived upon. For example, for many times I've told you that the attitude or the Southern aristocracy may have lost the Civil War, but they won the country. They have ruled this country from day one. Nothing has changed. Only officially has things changed in this country since its inception. And when we see it from that perspective, then if we just look at it with our eyes, it looks like we are retrogressing to that point. When we see it with our eye, the pineal gland, with our spiritual eye, we begin to see that there is tremendous, for lack of a better word, progress being made along this spiritual journey. Because the things that we are observing now, we had no thoughts about it earlier. The whole design, the whole foundation of Christianity from the beginning was to keep us blind to what is, as opposed to what we are being shown by through the eyes, rather, of those perpetuators of Christianity. Classic example. African Queens. I watched that. And one of the things I got from that is this: It's a Netflix movie. But what I got from that is this: when the Christians came to Angola, what they did, they brought this thing called Christianity for the express purpose of forcing the African to throw away its culture, walk away from its deity, just to see itself as being a pagan without any God that was worthy of worshiping, without any culture whatsoever, living in a what they called a savage society. That's what Christianity did, and that was the purpose of Christianity, to cause you to forget who you are, to cause you to reject every cultural aspect of your life, to cause you to believe that the only God that existed with any power whatsoever is the God that you were being given that was enslaving you. Think about that. From day one, that's what Christianity was to us. That's what Christianity was presented. That's how it was presented to us. And to this day, it is no different. The difference is that, well, before I move beyond that, let me ask, are there questions about this? Because we need to be clear. Okay. The difference in that will show us how we arrive at this place where we understand that we are created in the image and likeness of God, which means that we must be God. Because if you're in the image and likeness of your parent, then in the image and likeness of a human, then you're a human. So what happened is, well, let me back up. I'll take a step backwards first. What we've seen in the past is that we are a nation born on the waters. We've talked about that in the past. It comes from 1619 Project, being a nation born on the waters, and as such, we are deemed to be the tip of the spear for change for humanity. Now, keep in mind that the nation born on the waters is not just those of us who ended up in America or on this landmass. There are others who are in this same nation, and which on fleets. They are in Brazil more than we are, and they are in Trinidad. They are in Jamaica. All of the Africans who are living in diaspora are a nation who was born on the waters. Why is it then that it's so different for us? Why is it that we are in this position that we are in? If you look very closely at the transatlantic slave trade, they are all of the nations, be it Belgium, Portugal, which were the original slave traders, England, U.S., all of them have one thing in common. Every single one of them has one thing in common, and that is to use the entrapment of Christianity to diminish the self-awareness of those who are being enslaved and to give them a sense of worthlessness using Christianity. Every one of them traveled the same road when they were enslaving us. The only difference is that in America, it was primarily the Protestant Church and Judaism. And the rest of the world, it was Catholicism. And Catholicism used the enslavement of Africans to enrich itself. So, what am I saying to you? Christianity was and is the greatest enslaver, the greatest colonial power, and the greatest imperialist force ever known to man. It has justified everything that has been done to people of color, especially to the African in particular. Prior to that, we were a group of people throughout that continent who had a very, very strong spiritual connection with our Creator. We were so intricately tied to our Creator in our beliefs until we were indeed one with the earth itself. We were one with nature. We were one with the animals. We were one with everything in this earth. The voice of the wind and the wisdom of the rain, the life of the sun, all these things spoke to us in a deep way. And now they are speaking, but we don't hear them at all because of how we were indoctrinated. We have recently been talking about ancestors. And when someone said something to me about ancestors during this week, it dawned on me that we talk about it, but do we understand it? What does this mean in relationship to where we are now? If you study the history of Africans prior to the interest of Europeans into the continent, what you will find is that all of us believed, regardless of what group you came from, believed that our guidance came from our ancestors. And all of that became a sign of being a savage or being a pagan after the Europeans entered the continent with their enslaving religion called Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. All of that changed. And we have been indoctrinated to the point where we think that we go to hell if we talk about our ancestors. Let's talk about that for a moment. We are not the only people, only Africans who talked about ancestors. Neither are we the only indigenous people who talk about ancestors. The only people on the face of the earth who do not talk about being guided by ancestors are Europeans. So why is it that everyone on the face of this earth is wrong except the Europeans when they were the last ones to even be discovered to be a part of the earth? When all of these spiritual beliefs had their genesis in Africa. So why is it that we are wrong when we talk about ancestors? Well, we cannot talk about being Elohim. We cannot talk about being made in the image and likeness of God if we deny ancestral guidance. It is impossible. Why? Because when we are talking about ancestors, we're not talking about just the people who were enslaved in 1619 or in the early 1400s with the Portuguese. We're talking about my mama, your uncle, your cousin, those who you have had contact with intimately in this earth. They are now your ancestors. As each one of us transition, we become an ancestor. And if we are an ancestor, and well, we've talked about that because we talked about how some people who transitioned before us still guide us. So we are talking about the guidance of ancestors. And we don't have to look beyond the people we know in order for us to embrace the wisdom of our ancestors. We have come to the understanding that if we are indeed created in the image and likeness of God, of our Creator, of Elohim, then that means we have the attributes of Elohim. We are Elohim indeed. We are Elohim in these physical bodies having a human experience. And in having this experience and understanding that we are Elohim, then when we transition, who are we? Do we cease to be Elohim? Or do we be, are we or one with, in totality, Elohim? Or are we reflective of the totality of the image and likeness of Elohim when we leave this earth, because we don't have these earthly distractions anymore? We don't have these earthly feelings of guilt for offloading the burdens and the enslavement of Christianity and the Islam and the Judaism and all the other isms. We don't have that burden anymore. So when we talk about consulting ancestors, when we talk about guidance of ancestors, we are talking about the guidance of Elohim. We don't cease to be Elohim simply because we leave the bodies. Does that make sense? Before I go further, are there any questions about this? Comment.
Rip, I have a comment. Now, what you have said, I have, like I said, sensed that, because when I had my accident, and at the end, when they had me at the hospital, I didn't feel like I was still. You be at a point where all the weight of this world, you're not gonna feel that anymore. You'll feel at peace, a unity, back in the place where you was in the beginning. That's how I was feeling.
Thank you, sir. And that's an experience of that I've heard from others before. Any other questions or comments?
I think we talked about last week how hello?
Go ahead, I'll go after you.
Okay. I think we talked about in the last couple of weeks how the ancestors are, if the Creator created us, then the Creator is our ultimate ancestor. And my question then becomes, when Revelations or wherever it is in the Bible talks about the great cloud of witnesses, is it talking about those people who have gone on before us? They are people who not necessarily related to us, but people who were of the belief that they were created by the Creator and they were connected directly to the Creator. So that great cloud of witnesses, are they in fact our ancestors?
Indeed they are. The crowd of mortals is actually what that scripture says. They are indeed ancestors. As a matter of fact, everyone, whether it be your great-great-great-great-grandparent or whether it be mine is also your ancestor. My mom is your ancestor. Your mom is my ancestor. The point of the matter is that the reason, the reason it's important for us to make that connection in terms of our understandings is because it gives us familiarity with those that we have known prior to their transition, and we have some of us, most of us anyway, that I've spoken with, have at some point experienced that presence, because we've talked about how we've seen our mom or how we've seen our dad or how someone has spoken to us who has transitioned before us. Even those who disliked me when they were in their bodies have spoken to me since their transition. I've seen them vividly in dreams. I've seen them and heard their voices clearly during the course of a day. So yes, Audrey, you're absolutely on point in saying that. Anyone else? Audrey,
Yes,
is
yes,
that,
sir.
I'll go after you, Bob.
Audrey, is that clear to you?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, Pastor, this is Kathy. I have a question because based on what we've been taught, everything you're saying this morning resonates. It makes sense. But we had a discussion a few weeks ago, and I asked the question then, so everyone that transitioned, we become ancestors. And the comment was made that not necessarily because some choose to come back. So where does that fit into the discussion that we're having this morning, that not necessarily everyone becomes an ancestor if they choose to come back?
The difference between ancestry and reincarnation is that when you leave the body, you're an ancestor. When that energy returns to a body, it is present with us. So it does not change the reality that it was an ancestor. Does that make sense?
It does.
You are not an ancestor when you are in this body. You're an ancestor when you exit this body. And again, this whole idea of ancestry has been real to humanity from the beginning of time. Isn't it something that a small group of people can, relatively speaking, of course, a very small group of people can come into this earth and change the course of everyone's beliefs? And they have no cultural beliefs of their own. They have no spiritual beliefs of their own, but yet they can alter everyone else's. Why is that so? If our Creator is so strong and righteous, why would that be? Why would our Creator allow that to happen? Could it be that it's for the express purpose of pushing us into a corner so we can truly search for our identity? And in searching for our identity, bring those who have sought to rob us of our cultural identity and bring them to a place where their eyes are open and they don't fret because of, quote unquote, the browning of America. They don't fret because of the interaction they have with people of color, and that they are not dogmatic, greedy, and barbaric to the extent that they seek to keep the people of color in their, quote unquote, place. Is it that we are supposed to bring them to a place of unicity with the Creator, a place where they realize that they came from the same womb that the whole of humanity did, that we are a people not based upon skin tone, but we are a people based upon our spiritual, not similarity, but our spiritual, likeness. And the reason that these principles of racism are in place based upon breed is because in order for us to be Elohim living in these human bodies, having a truly, truly human experience, we must indeed bring those to a place of awareness that they are human as well. And the Creator, in telling us to dominate this earth, meant more than just receiving our sustenance from it or robbing it of everything and keeping everyone else from getting their sustenance from it without paying a healthy price. Could it possibly be that the domination speaks to the idea of cultivation? Cultivating, as it was spoken in the garden, cultivating means to take care of something, to nurture it, to make sure that it becomes stronger than what it was when you first started to cultivate or nurture it. Strength is not found in the barrel of a gun. even though Mao Zedong said that power comes from the barrel of a gun, that was indoctrination from a Western power. Strength and power comes from knowing who you are, and could it be that we have created a climate that we are currently living in, where self-awareness has absolutely nothing to do with external skin tone, but self-awareness has everything to do with knowing who we are. When I hear Tony Evans talk about the racism of the Southern Baptist Church, that's a milestone for me anyway, knowing his messages from the past and how he is, or has been rather. That's a milestone. That speaks volumes, and that speaks extremely loudly to what we are talking about when we talk about putting it in the macro, the understanding of the spiritual nature of our essence. So I do believe that we are closer to this place than we've ever been, and that place being that creating in our image, and creating in our image, the African bringing the image of it, of what it was brought into this earth to be, bringing that image to all of humanity. Because if you really think about it, the African is the most despised group of people on the face of the earth, simply because of the dark skin, simply because of the thick lips, simply because of the wide nose, simply because of the those who have enslaved and have sought to destroy the cultural history of and the spiritual nature of the African self. Keep in mind, out of all the brutality and barbarianism we have suffered over the years, is one thing that we have never, over the centuries, that one thing that we have never, ever let go of, and that is the nature of our spiritual sense. Whether we understood it or not, we've always been the most spiritual people on the face of the earth. We've always been forgiving people, not really being able to understand the why of it, but now we are beginning to see the reason for it, so that we can constantly be in a state of creation, creating an environment of unicity with our Creator, so that others can benefit from it, and benefit from it in such a way that it will enhance all of us. There's a saying, wabi sabi, a Japanese saying that says, "Find peace in imperfection." And I would like to add to that, not only find peace in imperfection, or also make peace in the face of imperfection. Create peace in the face of imperfection. That those are the kinds of things that we are in this earth to do, to bring, in order to bring humanity to a place of balance. We have to accept the reality of what's around us and the real purpose and God, and real purpose for our even existing in this earth, the real reason that we were allowed to brought into an environment of slavery. And I do believe that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and the student is ready, and we need to change our speech and talk about what is going to be as opposed to what is. Just because you cannot see it with your eyes, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You can't see me, but you know I exist. You can't see the tree in my yard, but it does exist. So just because we don't see the change that's being wrought, it doesn't mean it does not exist. But there is a caveat to when the teacher appears, the student will appear. I'm sorry, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. There's a caveat to that. And the caveat to that is this. When the student is really ready, the teacher will disappear. When the student is ready to move on his own or move forward, the teacher will disappear. We are at a place now where we have a choice to make. We can hold on to the truth of that everything that is going to ever exist exists now, and the The lie of separation from Creator, the lie that has been perpetuated based upon racism and greed, that lie must be overshadowed by the truth. And that lie is being overshadowed by the truth. That lie is squeezing everything that has perpetuated the lie out of the darkness into the light. And the more we shed light on it, the less effective it is in keeping us in bondage and keeping the earth in bondage. There is no man who can keep another man in bondage without being in bondage itself. We are the liberators. And to be a liberator, you must first liberate yourself. And liberating yourself is by embracing who you really are. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's where we are. Any questions or comments about that?
Yes, good afternoon, Pastor. Good afternoon, everyone. As you were speaking on our ancestors, I wanted to just mention in terms of the concept of libation. And the reason why, I mention that is because as we look at our ancestors, we can go back and look at it from even a mathematical perspective in terms of not only being able to go to the original source, but being able to appreciate that if we looked at 20 generations, over a period of 400 years, there's an exponential expansion equation, that let us know that we can go and to identify with 1,047,576 ancestors that you can connect to. And as you say, sometimes it's not necessarily what you see, but it's what you're able to hear in the spirit or connect in the spirit. And this is, again, what, the Kemetic term when we say tep hasep, where, it's an accurate reckoning by using a corrective method. And I'm just saying that in terms of mathematically, Pastor, it talked about the Rhine papyrus, and it's a mathematical, equation, that gave all of the answers in terms of just being able to search for truth or significance. But if we looked at that over a period of 20 generations, it was just interesting to see how it all lines up, where you can go even, further in time to seek a more earlier origin of it. But I think it was just interesting to me to look at it when we just take something so simple as 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 grandparents, 16 great-great-grandparents, but we can look at 20 generations and be able to know that we're connected to that ancestor at that particular number. So I just wanted to share that thought because I think, again, it's just relevant in terms of connecting to our beginning. So I just wanted to share those thoughts, in reference to, how, the Kemetic ancestors and the Kushites were able to come to that conclusion. So again, math is a very important aspect of our history. I'll just share that. I'm done.
Thank you, George. For those of you who may not have caught that, the formula that's used to get to the 1 million plus ancestors begins with 2 parents, and it increases exponentially over the course of 20 generations, and that's how you arrive at that number that you are directly connected to in terms of ancestry. Am I correctly explaining that, George?
Yes. I was just trying to tie it into the ancestry piece, but the libation and how we're able to connect is, what I was just giving thought to and wanted to put out in the macro.
Thank you.
I appreciate you explaining that. Thank you.
The concept that George mentioned of libation, there were during, the last century, the 1900s, late 1900s, around 1980s or 90s, early 90s. There was Mark Sharon and a group of African pastors from different islands and from this country went to the Bermuda Triangle, and they poured out libations to the African ancestors who were a part of the African Holocaust, whose lives were taken from them on the high seas during the transatlantic slave trade. And since that happened, yes.
Go over libations again. Talk. Where do?
I'm gonna explain it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you. When I say poured out libations, they poured out wine to honor the ancestors and to recognize them for the toll that was taken upon them for the benefit of humanity. And when they did that, there has not been a ship or a plane lost since then in the triangle. After your phone, please. After each African wedding, there are libations poured out to the ancestors in expression of thanksgiving for not only their presence as being there during that ceremony, but also for the guidance that they have given up to that point, and the guidance that they shall continue to give. So this idea again of libations is to point out, like for example, in the African weddings that I participated in, the libation that was poured out was I think it was gin that was poured out. The libation that's poured out is always one that contains fermented alcohol, and in the case of the triangle, it was wine. Questions, comments? Is that clear enough, Ron?
yes, sir. It is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your explanations along with George, it also brings to mind something you said a while back. We never have left beginning, as we understand the concepts of being one with the ancestors. That's true. You're always at your beginning, and it makes that even clearer as well. So, thank you.
You're welcome. In addition to that, it made clear also what Audrey was talking about, the cloud of witnesses earlier in our discussion. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yes, this is Ange. I got a question. When you talk about the teacher and the student, you're not talking about the student as like me, but you're talking about the spiritual. Because one time I was looking at it as the spiritual meets the physical, but then I don't think this.
Oh, it is the physical.
Oh, it is? Okay.
It's the physical body. For example, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
Your desire for truth will draw you to me, or me to you. So I will appear in your life when you are ready. When you have a sincere desire to understand who you are, there will be a instructor drawn into your life. Everything spiritual in this earth now, not from the beginning, but now, everything in this earth that spiritual begins in the physical. Everything. We would not be where we are in our spiritual understanding if it had not been for the materialistic teachings of religion. Put your phone, please. Does that make sense, Angela?
Yes.
So yes, there has always been, since beginning of understanding spirituality, human bodies endowed with the essence of Elohim teaching bringing spiritual messages to life for humanity. The whole concept of spirituality before religion speaks to what education was originally about. It was not about being an architect. It was about understanding who you are spiritually. In order for you to be an architect, you did the program that you go into when you teach somebody. Come on, help me, someone. When you wanted to be a carpenter, you worked with a carpenter.
Apprenticeship?
An apprentice?
Apprenticeship. All other, the medicine was an apprenticeship. Architecture was an apprenticeship. Education was different than an apprenticeship. Education was totally spiritual from the beginning. It only morphed into something different when the Greeks got their hands on the materials that were in the libraries of Kemet, of Egypt, and began to transform the education into a material thing, where it ended up the people who were considered the most educated, who were able to articulate what they read as opposed to what they created, they were considered the power brokers. In the settings of the Kushite kingdom or the Kemites in Egypt, the whole idea of education had everything to do with learning your spiritual unicity with the one who created everything that is. The idea of speaking about, like, for example, I spoke concerning Egyptology one, I think it may be Monday, how Egyptology is an effort to suck out of the Egyptian history everything that the Catholics did not want anyone else to know, because Egyptology started with Catholicism. The Pope is the one who introduced Egyptology, so that it was a study of the Kemite actual spirituality and the Kemite societies. There is no other ology that speaks to the culture of a people. The only culture that is considered a science is Egyptology. That's a study of the cultural aspects of a people. You do not find Native Americanology. You do not find any other or scientific methods of weeding out of a culture what you don't want the people of that culture to know. And it has worked so well until when I read this article that someone sent me about this comedian who went to Egypt and was talking about all of us being Africans. They had to shut the show down because the Egyptians discounted themselves as being African. And the reason they did that is because they have been so indoctrinated with racism until they are perpetuators of it themselves and don't even realize it. And that happens all the time. How we are perpetuators of racism without even realizing it. And that is, when you think about the depth of that type of indoctrination, it would seem as though that it's virtually impossible for us to get to a place of oneness with humanity. But it isn't. It isn't. It really isn't. 1,000 years is but a day in the eyes of Yahweh, Elohim. So in our eyes, 1,000 years of indoctrination can be erased in less than a day, if our commitment is there. And I do believe our commitment is there. I do believe that, regardless of the hurdles that we must clear, regardless of the controversies that we must deal with, regardless of the missteps we may make along this journey. Our commitment is pure. There are times when there is much discomfort, not only in our discussions, but in our lives in general. Yet, here we are. Why? Because our commitment is pure. There is no doubt anywhere, inside of me, and I'm hoping with you as well, that there is, I'm sure rather, not hope, with you as well, there is no doubt about the commitment that we have made to bringing harmony to humanity. I do not believe that we would have been shown the understandings of the wisdom that has existed in this earth from the beginning of time. I do not believe that we would have been shown the understandings of it for the purpose of our experiencing it if our commitment was not pure. Yes, we may be shaken. Yes, we may be hit really, really hard to the point of shedding tears and feeling like there is no hope. But I guarantee you that only lasts for a season, or really less than a season, before someone speaks to you and brings you back to that place where you see yourself in that mirror, Elohim. Or you yourself get to that place where you shake it off because you really know who you are. Being shaken doesn't mean you're defeated. Being hurt doesn't mean that you're defeated. Giving up means that you defeated yourself. Walking away from it means that you destroyed yourself.
I have a question. Sorry, I'll let you finish your thought.
Simply just to make sense. Go ahead, Art.
My question is, are there libations needed now, or do we become the libation when we sort of give up our ego and search for the truth?
As far as physical libations being needed now, I have not, for me, I can speak for me in terms of that. I have not felt the urge of doing that. However, I don't discount the need for it, or will there ever be a need for it. I don't discount that at all. As far as the spiritual libation given up by ego, the spiritual libation of pouring ourselves out, to me, speaks to the idea of giving up all of our aspirations and desires. But the one priority in our lives is to bring balance to humanity. That, to me, is a pouring out of your life for the benefit of humanity, which is a spiritual libation. That's how I see it, Audrey. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Sage, I'd like to ask a question, and Audrey, please explain what you mean by libation.
Well, what I was following up on what Pastor said, they poured out, when the pastors poured out the wine in the ocean. To me, it is it's like a giving over to the Creator to handle whatever is going on. I don't know. I don't have any other words for it than that. But it's a giving, like kind of like when the Creator says we should when the Bible says we should praise the Creator. So praise is kind of a libation, a giving over, an acknowledgement, something like that.
Okay. All right. I understand. Thank you.
It brings peace.
Okay.
I know the guys who did it for the triangle talked about the peace. That the purpose of it was to bring peace to the ancestors who were thrown overboard or who died in the process of the transatlantic slave trade. And the reason they said peace is because of the turmoil that was taking place there with the loss of ships and planes, etc. In terms of the wedding, It was in expression of appreciation and gratitude for the presence of the ancestors having guided us to this place and desiring them to continue to guide us. So libations being poured out is no different when we talk about the wine Audrey mentioned. They just poured it into the ocean with those desires.
Okay.
Is that clearer to you?
Most certainly it is. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Morning, this is,
Thank
I wanted to ask as well about libations and like our cultural tendency to pour out typically alcohol for someone who's passed. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like you pour out something for I see guys do this, like in remembrance of someone. I know that's
yeah. We had anyway. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. That is something that's innate. That's in us. That is one of those cultural things that have never left, even though we can't explain it and did not understand what was happening doing that. We have been, my friends, we've been together forever and a day, and that was one of the things that we are going to do for each other when we transition. The idea of pouring out a libation, ours in the beginning was because of friendship, but now that I have a greater understanding of it, it is actually them being welcome home to becoming an ancestor.
Yes, that does make sense because I think about becoming an ancestor as a type of graduation.
It is.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate graduation.
To be celebrated.
And the one doing the pouring to it benefits greatly from it. It offers them, that person, that peace and that connection that can never be broken. It's an experience. I've been a part of that as well. It is an experience that just connects everything. So I just agree with what's been said. But the one that does the pouring to benefits greatly from what is being done. Just the experience of it.
Does it need to be alcohol?
No, it doesn't need to be alcohol, but with the association alcohol has with the spirit world, aka spirits, which is why alcohol is referred to that, it usually is. Let me just add something to this whole discussion. The sort of pouring out of a libation, or pouring out of any drink, in particular alcohol, having an altar or something like that, where you see in a lot of Eastern religious and spiritual tradition, where you provide fruit or etc. to either a deity or the ancestors, or these are all sort of part of the same metaphysical and spiritual ritualistic practice. And without going into too much detail, and we've already talked about it today, but the definition or the explanation for what an ancestor is, it sort of depends on the context that you're speaking about. But in the case where you are, for example, offering fruit at an altar or something like that, or in the case where you're sort of pouring out a drink or something like that, there is an energy associated and attached to, perhaps for lack of a better term, attached to that offering that you are making. And it is that energy that is able to, let's say, transcend the boundaries of this physical experience. And so that's the idea. Now, there's a lot that goes into who is receiving on the other end. And in the case where these ritualistic practices become sort of religiousified, if you get my meaning, it's much less sort of directed at a positive sort of spiritual concept, and more so just available to whatever that wishes to take advantage of that sort of essence or that energy on the other side, quote unquote, of the sort of boundaries of the material. When we make our transition, there is a period where we sort of come to, in a sense, in our new environment. And depending on, the nature of your vibration on a very basic level, you sort of progress from there. But it is possible, if you are very greatly attached in an egotistical way to the experience of material life and the types of things you used to enjoy. For example, if you really love drinking, probably to the point where it became a problem in your life, then it can be likely that you will seek out the essence of that experience even while you are in the non-physical realm, but still close, in a sense, to this material or physical experience. So the altars or the pouring out of libations can become attractors to entities that are in non-physical realms who that desire those kinds of experiences, if that makes sense. So this whole ritualistic practice that we are talking about must be taken within the context of it being spiritual, and it must be done with a directed intent. And in the case where it is done formally, there are more, you could say, ritualistic or ritualistic practices that should be associated with something like that, that form the basis for what we would call like a magic ceremony or something like that. But all those concepts are quite diluted and distorted in our sort of pop culture and religious understanding of what that sort of concept of magic or ritual is. But they're all very spiritually charged if you do them for that purpose. And it is always to be done with the, shall we say, positive intent. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions about that? Or comments?
I have a question, but I guess you can answer it later. So when we talk about the pouring of the libations, how does that correspond with Aquarius pouring from the pitcher, and it's pouring down? It's like how does that go with what the sign of Aquarius? Does that make sense? What I'm saying? Is that the same principle, or is it a different concept?
Makes sense. Nick, you want to respond to that? To pour it out.
Sure. It does make sense, and I think it is the same concept. But the sort of symbol of Aquarius is more explicitly spiritual. And if the drink is poured out with spiritual intent, then it resonates with that energy. So Aquarius is the sort of cosmic, quote unquote, higher sign. It is the sort of higher version of that, which you can create a sort of harmonic resonance with when you do the microcosm version of that ritual, which is pouring out a drink. Do I suggest we all start pouring out drinks for everything? No. And not for any particular reason other than ritual done with no spiritual charge within the self ultimately adds to confusion. So there's not really a need to do that anyway. But can you do it with the understanding of what it is you're doing? Absolutely.
But that Nick, that ties directly into. Oh, sorry, Evelyn. Did that help you?
I need a little bit more understanding as far as the pouring out. So you're saying that the Aquarius, the man holding the picture, or whatever, is pouring out spiritual principles to the universe?
Yeah, it's
I just need clarity on that.
it is the loosening of the dam, in the sense of holding back the water, which is the energy of spirit, or the whatever the energy that is represented by, or whatever the energy that is more accessible within the age of Aquarius. So that energy, that sort of spiritually charged substance, is permeating our environment as a result of the loosening or the pouring out of this reservoir. And I think it could be explained more simply than that. Even it's just the mentality, the consciousness, the energetic environment of the period of Aquarius is one where that water or that energy is just much more available and more accessible. Does that help?
I'm processing.
Okay.
Yeah, I had something maybe to help clear it up for you, Evelyn. Nick talked about pouring out principles. What do you do, Evelyn, when you're talking to other people who ask you questions? What do you do when you're just in a casual conversation? You're pouring out what? You're pouring yourself out. Do we not talk about that? What are we pouring out when we talk about pouring ourselves? We're pouring into other people the principles that we live by, or the principles that we embrace. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nick, is that not what you were talking about?
Yes, that's a better way to explain it.
Thank you, man. I was about to say that when you talked about the confusion that's created by simply just pouring stuff out without any spiritual connotations to it, is pretty much what communion is. It keeps people in check. It has nothing to do with spirituality. It has everything to do with control. Make sense?
Yep. And particularly in Catholicism, because in Catholicism, you are literally eating and drinking the blood and body of Jesus. That's whatever the transubstantiation of the communion stuff. That is, I don't want to go into that, but that's just pure. That's how the intellect combined with the ego completely distorts spiritual reality. But that is just straight up religious confusion.
Nick, you can't help but go into it. That's cannibalism.
Yes, the thing they accuse all the dark-skinned people of doing.
Right, absolutely. And even now, communion is based upon internal spiritual cannibalism. Communion, the way it is done in the church today, came from the Lutherans, who got it from the Catholics. The Catholics are transubstantiation, and the Lutherans are consubstantiation, which means that once you ingest the blood and the bread, it turns into the flesh of Jesus and the blood of Jesus, which again is cannibalism.
Yep.
So this whole idea of communion is based upon that. Thank you.
And that's it turns into it before or after you eat it. That's just the stupid minutia of the intellectual confusion that comes with that sort of empty ritual, religiousified ritualistic practice. And that's the same reason you have 10,000 different denominations of Christianity. It's the same idea behind all of that.
Confusion. That's exactly what it is and what it does. It confuses us even more. And think about it. Who is the barbarian? The one who pours out libations with spiritual connotations to ancestors, or is it the one who is basing a connection with spirituality on cannibalism? Ask yourself that. And that may be very, very well be the reason when we began to open our eyes, or get our eye open rather, to what we are seeing spiritually, that this whole thing about communion was left by the wayside in many ways. What do you guys think? Thank you.
I
I
think that. Go ahead, Ron.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just think that with where we are in terms of our knowing that it is beyond a ritual that we need. We do not need rituals at this point because of our belief that we are the essence of the Creator. So we do not need the ritual anymore as a reminder to us who we might become, because we already know who we are.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anyone else?
And all ritual is meant to point or be in harmonic resonance with an aspect of the self, the spiritual entity that you are. Any ritual that is sort of not, at least for the basic part, recognized to at least have some relationship to something spiritual is, as we've already said, will contribute to confusion and is empty and allows for, depending on what you're doing, on a sort of real metaphysical level, sort of other entities to take advantage of the energy generated by that ritual, regardless of whether you know what you're doing or not, depending on what you're doing.
That's interesting that you would say that, because a lot of people can't leave where they are because of the ritual. They like all that stuff and it makes them feel good. So they have a problem leaving it.
And that's the purpose of the ritual. And that is the reason it's so difficult for people to shed this burden, this bondage of Christianity, for the reality of being the spiritual entities that we were created to be. The Adam in the earth, the Elohim in the earth, Yahweh in the earth. We are all of that.
I think the again, going back to Evelyn's original question, something she said kind of caught me, and I don't remember her exact words, but it had something to do with feeling uncomfortable or not feeling like yourself. And I think that is the whole design of Christianity, and that's where we are now. And it has been so deeply rooted in us that we feel guilt about everything. We feel disharmony when we step out of the box, when we have a refreshing thought or desire to see truth. It makes us feel uncomfortable, and it pulls us back to the rituals, and because that's the place of comfort, that's the feel good. So as we expose this and talk about it more, hopefully those feelings of being uncomfortable or feeling guilty or feeling uh, not quite absolute, you know, were sort of wane in their strength of their hold on us. And maybe even we'll start seeing that waning in just in general from a religious perspective in the church. I was reading something the other day of how angry pastors are in the Southern Baptist. People are losing control of what they have on people. This power that they have is fading away, and people not necessarily are looking for truth, but they recognize that what they've been following isn't real, and this next generation is wanting the more. So as we talk about these things and expose, not only look at truth, but expose what is untrue, I think that's part of the bringing the balance and understanding and even freeing of ourselves those moments of guilt and feeling uncomfortable about who we are or the direction that we're traveling in. Thank you. I just want to add that to the conversation because it all just everything just kind of tied together today beautifully.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad y'all saying that we don't have to pour out the libations because the 6-pack of beer is gone up. So, thank you.
Get off. Wrong with you.
You could, yeah. Now you got to splurge a little bit if you're gonna do that right. You got to get some good stuff. If I was an ancestor and someone was pouring out Bud Light for me, I'd be like, you know what? I don't need this. Speaking of which, just not to. Oh, go ahead. Let me not cut anyone off.
Okay, sorry. I do have one question. I was just saying that you guys are hilarious. I think we covered this, but I kind of want to hear it again. What the benefit is for the ancestor that you pour out for, like how that energy or desire benefits them.
It brings peace. In the triangle, it brought peace, and that's the reason nothing has transpired in the triangle since that took place. And it brings different energies with it, depending on the one who's doing the pouring. What is the purpose of it? What is the spiritual essence of what you're doing? So you are the controller of that. Does that make sense, Janice?
It does. So if I pour out something like to honor my dad, or to like offer gratitude for his assistance or something, I'm just wondering like what that does for him.
I can help with that. And this is something I just wanted to bring up. If you want to do that for an ancestor that has directly passed, it's better to do that as soon as possible. As soon as possible, but I believe there's probably a best time frame to do it within, because depending on the person after they pass, like I said, there's that sort of getting acclimated to your new environment period. And I think it would be better if that was done during that period of acclimation. So if an ancestor has been gone for decades and decades, it is possible that they may still be somewhat close to this sort of material or earth realm. Though I would say in that case, it's usually the result of sort of something they need help with on their part. And that's sort of what you may be offering when you pour out a libation to them. That said, in the beginning, during that period of acclimation, and this is just my sort of metaphysical understanding based on my own knowledge and experience, even though I have not done that myself. In the beginning, during that acclimation period, it can help them sort of orient themselves to where they are, I believe. So the energy that you give when you are performing that ritual can help them right themselves. So it's it becomes in some way a little bit of a beacon for them, I believe, that they can use to sort of just accelerate that acclimation process to their spiritual environment, if that is in any way confusing or sort of surprising to them. But as the amount of time increases, it's much less likely that you are dealing with the sort of direct spirit that just crossed over, that just passed. And it is more likely that you are sort of dealing with the concepts that they helped bring into the earth. Or you can think of it like the echo or the ripple effect that they made, whatever spiritually or whatever spiritual reservoir of that echo or ripple effect that they created still exists. When you do something like pour out a libation after a long amount of time, you'll probably be dealing with that echo or that ripple effect rather than them directly. And all of these concepts are very sort of strange and difficult to try to explain, but I think it just has to do with whether or not you are directly aiding a person while they are still sort of consciously focused in a realm that is close to the material experience, as opposed to after more time has passed, it's more likely they have, let's say, refocused somewhere else. And it's no longer like a direct help when you do some ritualistic practice for them. Does that help?
It does. And it kind of makes me think that in the case like that, like if you are pouring out a libation to honor, like maybe honoring a specific ancestor doesn't make as much sense, like if they've passed on, but your desire and your gratitude may still be beneficial. Like maybe it amplifies the positive echo that's left or something in this realm.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I believe. I think that is how it works in that case. And related to that,
I guess,
and I'll finish this up real quick.
Question, Nick,
Oh, go ahead.
okay, go ahead. My question though is based on what you're saying. In the spirit world, is time relevant? Does it really? Does it diminish things that time has passed in this regard, based on the desire of the one doing the pouring, and the other one, of course, the other side of it, if the person has transitioned? You're saying that time that you make that offering, if you will, it is a relevant part of it, right? Or
Yeah, I think I understand what you mean. I think time is relevant in that there is a diminishing of, let's say, whatever energy it is as more time progresses. But that energy never goes away. And the main sort of factor in that relationship between us and that energy is us. We're more likely to experience it, to connect with it, if we remember it, if we, perform those rituals, or we honor those principles. And over time, as we experience it, if we begin to forget, then our ability to connect with that energy diminishes. Then that energy itself has less of an ability to influence anything. And in a sense, it also diminishes.
The idea of the dimension of it with time is on us. Think about it. How many years was it before those group of preachers did poured out libations in the triangle. Hundreds of years. However, the deep desire to do it, being led spiritually to do it, is the thing that transcended time and connected as though it was yesterday when it took place, when the drownings or when the transatlantic slave trade took place. Look at the long-lived repercussions that trauma that we are dealing with because of the transatlantic slave trade. There are times when our minds are someplace else, we don't think about it. However, if you are laughing and talking and having a great time, and all of a sudden you see the blue lights from a police car behind you, you freeze. So what does that do? It carries you back to the plantation with the slave patrols. That's what it does. And so when you have a desire to do that, it does indeed transcend time if you are doing it based upon your sincerity and based upon the expressed connection to that person or to those people that you are experiencing at that moment. Does that make sense, Janice?
Yes, yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Ron, thank you for the question.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Nick, for the response.
Yeah.
Of course.
This is Richard. I don't know exactly where we are in this, but it kind of brought to my mind, and it's a little bit apart from it, the whole idea of passing, without getting into what tradition says what. And even now, medical science is coming up with understandings about the brain, etc., a bit more profound in a sense of what happened or the time that it takes. I just wonder, this notion, almost like an Irish wake, the Indian idea of immolation, etc., and the Buddhist idea of, if possible, having someone there with you to help you in the last parts of the process, and staying with you, so to speak, for the sake of conversation, with the understanding that, and I may be wrong about the amount of time, but it takes as much as 24 or 48 hours for, again, for want of a better word, let's say the spirit or essence of the individual to fully leave the body. And some recognition by the medical community to give people more time with the deceased. I just, that whole discussion, I don't know if that would be interesting or not, but it's certainly something that catches me up from time to time. And maybe it's not particularly related to this, but I think it would be interesting to explore. And I'm not necessarily suggesting we look for, the particular algorithm, you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but just the notion of sharing to some extent, or assisting, if that's a word you can use, in the process of the person that ideally is someone you know and care for, but could be someone you don't know. You come upon an accident, etc. I just wonder the significance, the profoundness, and the importance of understanding as truthfully as we can that process.
Richard, that has been a tradition forever and a day. That's what I grew up with. People assisting others to transition. that is a cultural thing that transcends all indigenous people. I'm not transcend. I'm sorry. That is involved in the lives of most of all that I know of indigenous people, especially. I do know definitely that it is the African that this is a part of their way of transitioning. I remember when they would bring bodies home, and the reason they would bring them home is because they should not, a dead body or transition person should not be there, should not be left alone. I also know that in growing up, there was always someone there at the mortuary, even before they did the embalming, that was there with that body at all times. And indeed, it is 48 hours that is seen in the Eastern world, the time that it takes for someone to exit completely the body. I do think that it may very well be something that we should explore in relationship to what we've just done. So I think that it would be well-founded if we look at that at some point in the future. But I think it's necessary for us to understand the reality of being able to assist someone in transitioning by virtue of being at their side. Thank you.
Well, I guess another reason I ask is because I know the way many of us, the lives we live, you can't, tragically, in a way, you can't always be present physically. So there's that whole spiritual, emotional bond aspect. I know in my own experience, and we don't need to go into that too much. Anyway, so it's just all that whole thing so that you, the one still living, and to the extent possible, to the one who's passing, can what? Make it as complete a process as it can be. I mean, I know there's a lot wrapped up into that, but I just think that to me would be somewhere down the road or wherever a very interesting, well, that's a very important discussion. And again, I'm not suggesting we come out with the 6 steps, the 5 steps you must do or something. It's more spiritual or subjective than that. But
I remember I remember reading this, and I have to dig it up what a book I was in, but it talked about, this is Judaism, praying for the person up to a year, helping them to transition if they're having any difficulties, that you family members meditating with them. And it talked about that after a year, their own merits should, the life that they live should also have some bearing on helping them in their transition. And I think it was saying that even, and this is not talking about embalming, of course, but that if there is a cell still living inside that body, that transitioning is still taking place. That's what it was sort of based on. And in looking at that, I think a couple things. One, that's looking at it from a purely physical perspective, looking at the body still having life in it. The other part of it is we don't quite understand what unity and oneness looks like. We see separations, and that's what we've been taught. But in the spiritual world, that human that is recognizing himself to be Elohim, there's nothing more powerful in the earth, beneath the earth, or above the earth. and that thing is what connects everything. So when we look at it, I've been awakened in the middle of the night to pray for people, an event or pray about something because people lost their lives, and to pray for them. Things that I've never even don't fully know about. So I see it as we having this discussion because it's necessary. At the same time, understanding as much as we talk about it, gaining an understanding of who we are as Elohim and what that the beauty of that is, and beauty meaning bringing balance to what has been and will be, as well as bringing balance and understanding to ourselves. I think it benefits us as much as it does that person who is transitioned.
Thank you, sir. I think that we are at a spot where we should take a pause until. You guys agree?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Before we get off, can I share something right quick? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And how I'm choosing to handle it, but this happened last month at work. So I was in training, and this guy was training me at work, and he drifted off and was talking to somebody else. So I got behind, and so when I got behind, somebody said something to him, and he went off with me, and I responded back to him, it's your fault. I'm training. You left me. So he went on and he was saying all this stuff to me, which I was saying stuff back to him. So I got upset, and I was telling him to leave me alone. So I went to one of the people that was in charge, and I told them, I said, could you please tell this young man back here to leave me alone? And he looked at me. He didn't say not one word. So I started to walk off, and then I went back, and I told him, I said, if you don't do nothing about it, I'm going to go over your head. So I walked back to my job where I was working, and it was a guy that came up to me. He was another, like a processor or whatever, and he said, what did he say to you? And I said, he didn't say anything to me. So I asked him, could he reach out to the temp service that I was working for? So that he said, I think that they're gone. So I was the supervisor. Well, he wasn't out there on the floor. So they told me, they basically came up to me. They didn't address it whatsoever. They told me to go and to clean up. So prior to, I did reach out to the temp service. They had somebody to come out there and talk to me, and they told me that asked me, was he a permanent or was he a temp? And I told them, they said, well, we're gonna get the supervisor to come out and talk to you. So supervisor never came out. Nobody never came back, even from their side, and asked me, was the situation resolved or anything. So they kept putting me back with this same guy. So I told the other guy, I said, I'm not going to work with him because the issue, y'all never did anything about the issue, period. So I was angry, upset about it, just waiting for somebody to come back. I seen them, they threw up their hands, and, so long it went the other way. So I seen the supervisor on the floor, matter of fact, and then this happened February the 14th. And they came out the next day on the 15th. And then now I was waiting for the supervisor, never came. So then on the 20th of, I think the last Monday in February, I saw the supervisor on the floor, and I said, did anybody tell you that you were supposed to come and talk to me? And he was like, no. I said, no, they didn't. So I said, well, I need to talk to you about the incident that happened on the floor. So he said, okay, well, just give me time. I'm gonna do what I gotta do and I'm gonna come back. He never came back. So I said, I'm not gonna approach him no more. I'm not gonna stay at that job. But I said, this is what I said how I'm gonna handle it. And I said that I'm gonna wait until I'm ready to leave, and then I'm gonna reach out to upper management because I don't want nobody else. I don't know if it is personally towards me or or because I was working for the temp company or whatever. I don't want nobody to go because I told them that if this man was going to harm me, there was no one out there that was looking to step in and say, okay, this is not right before this escalated. So I don't want nobody else to go through this because I think it was unfair, and I don't want. So that's the way that I'm looking at it on my way out. I'm just gonna reach up, go over their heads because I tried to deal with it with them. So my question is, should I just leave it alone or just handle it in the which way that I said that I was going to do?
Angela, first I'm going to give you a one-sentence response. You should have gone to HR. Now, after we finish, let me talk to you about that personally, okay?
Yeah, I
Hello?
just want to. I'm gonna let
Oh,
Angela
okay.
respond. And then, yeah.
There's some factors involved in this with you that I would like to address with you, okay?
Okay.
Her experience is not unique though, and this is something I've encountered. It's been a few years, but I was working a job as a temp as well and had a similar situation with harassment. And the company that the company that hired me was a temp service, and they wouldn't do anything. And the company that I was working for, I tried to deal with them, and they wouldn't address it either, because I wasn't technically their employee. It was just this weird kind of limbo. Um, and a lot of people face that and are mistreated. I just wanted to point that out.
Well, that's absolutely the case. And that's one of the reasons I make every effort when I'm talking to someone about it, to talk to them, because there are so many elements that differ from person to person, and getting into the weeds of it is better done on a one-on-one basis than it would be, when all of us in this conversation, because there are a lot of things that are involved in this on a personal level that I would not want to be on YouTube, to be recorded.
Understood. I just was thinking like that it's worth bringing it to our attention that this is an aspect of the system that oppresses people deliberately. And we don't see it in the news, right? That this is happening, but it's something that companies do to oppress people. It makes me angry. I'll just leave it at that.
Absolutely, you're correct in that regard. Absolutely, that is a way of oppression, and quite frankly, the only reason there are temp services is so that corporations don't have to pay people. You work at BMW, you work beside someone who makes $25-30 an hour, and you make it 15. That kind of thing. So that's the purpose of it. However, when you need a job, what do? So that's why I say I would rather talk about it one-on-one with her afterwards. Okay.
Agreed. Yeah, I understand. I'm thankful that it came up because it's something that I know our energy as a group, like we can impact things in a positive way. So yeah, I'm thankful for that. Thank you, Angela.
You're welcome.
Okay then. great discussion today. And again, I'm glad it came up. I agree with your our energy, Janice, does have an impact on things. So thank you everyone involved in this. Again, hope you have a great day today. Look forward to tomorrow morning. Any questions or comments you may have, we'll begin there tomorrow, okay? Have a great day, everybody, and thank you again.
Thank you guys for
Bye,
everything
everyone.
present. Bye.
Thank you, family.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye,
everyone.
everybody. Bye, Sam.